Take your time and try to do your very best, because this is the last and most important test.
2 extra days to go before summer vacation, and Mrs. Kim throws a test at you. High school students are paying dearly for those snow days last winter. Normally, they'd be out by now.
Thank you.
Concentration, discipline. If you're in high school, it's tough enough. If you're in grade school, it's impossible.
Go!
We went to this school to shoot a story about the last 2 days of school. It was tough getting anything done. Every time we'd try to do an interview, some kid in back would mug for the camera. Every time we'd try to take a picture, all we'd get was this. You can understand why teachers get tired at the end of the year.
We're having fun.
Looks like fun.
I would say that they can hardly wait to get out.
How about the teachers?
Likewise.
It didn't matter where we put the camera.
This way and come up.
Hi, everybody. Hi, America.
There was simply no escaping them.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom. I am rocking the beat all night and day. I'm rocking the beat. Get the camera, man.
Finally, we had to appeal for help.
Please, if you want to get on camera, the best way to get on camera is not to wave at it.
You think they'll obey?
I hope they'll obey.
And you know what? Didn't work. 2 days to go before summer vacation, before these kids, bless them all, will be in your neighborhood. John Larson, Como News 4. Get the camera!
Though more than a dozen hours had passed, the smell of smoke still hung in the air in the 700 block of Duval Street. For Jose Estrada, things are quiet now, but that certainly wasn't the case Saturday night.
I need light. Okay. We can't see.
With his neighbor trapped inside a smoke-filled house, Estrada ran from his home across the street and went inside to try and find him.
You know, first time I go and just stand in the door and go back because too much smoke, can't see nothing, and too hot inside.
Yeah. You tried about 4 times to go back in.
Maybe more. I'm not sure.
Crawling on his hands and knees, he desperately tried to find 26-year-old Juka Holiday. But the smoke was unbelievable.
You see him? You see him? I need more air.
He would catch his breath outside and then try again. By this time, though, the fire department had arrived. Children playing with matches were blamed for starting the fire as Holiday was pulled from a back bedroom. As Estrada, his night clothes covered in soot, stood by. Holiday is now in fair condition. As for Estrada...
No, here's, just try to help. Anybody need help, I can try.
Still, in most anyone's book, it was a heroic effort, nonetheless. Bob Lawrence, 10 News.
Yes, a little bit more.
Okay.
Follow me.
I'll stay in as long as I can. When I go out, you come out. Don't block it.
Okay, come on. Run.
Jose Estrada is trying to save his neighbor's life.
I need more air.
But the smoke is too thick.
Oh, come on.
4 times, possibly more, Estrada re-enters a back room, too hot, too dark, too filled with smoke even to breathe.
I need light.
Okay.
By the time firefighters arrive, Estrada has located 26-year-old Jackie Holiday unconscious on the floor.
Please hurry up, kids. Oh, get Jack out of there.
Children playing with matches are blamed for the fire.
Watch out. Get out. They got it.
Tonight, Jackie Holliday is alive, in fair condition in a hospital. But everyone involved with the rescue knows he might be dead had there not been a hero right next door.
John, come on, John. Help him out, John.
Once a week or so, I like to pull my audience. Here you go, sir. Watch your step. Although it's only about a 45-second ride to the 21st floor, we get a chance to talk and hear views. And
You cannot really go anywhere these days without bumping into the war. Just ask Mike of elevator number 6.
we're talking about Persian Gulf.
Oh.
What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's just shameful that civilized people are acting in a violent way. And
Mike heard mostly fear the first week of the war. Now he hears discussion, even argument.
Well, I have 3 nephews in the Marine and a brother who's an officer in the Army, and they're fixing to start the ground war.
That man is a community organizer. He's about to get an earful from a woman who's a U.S. postal worker.
because the guy's a madman and he should be terminated.
Yep.
Now, the next thing you know, a freelance artist chimes in.
I just think that we pussyfoot around too much, the United States.
You can't be number one and pussyfoot around.
Well, I certainly would like to see my tax dollars spent in a better, more constructive, humane manner, you know. Since I have no say in them taking taxes out of my check. Lobby.
All this took place on one trip to the lobby. It used to be you stared at your feet when you got into an elevator. That changed 8 days ago. John Larson, Como News 4, Seattle. Tonight. Ask any salesperson how they think retail sales will be this Christmas, and they'll tell you.
I think it'll be very good.
I think it's going to be good.
Of course, salespeople have to be optimistic.
Good. Hope it's going to be good.
But a national poll today said that Americans have less confidence in the economy than they've had in almost 10 years.
I think they'll still be good.
And that consumer spending, which should be growing at this time of year, is actually shrinking.
I think it's going to be good.
I was going to ask you, how do you think sales are going to be this year? I think they'll be good.
Salespeople hope shoppers will spend more this year. But everyone we spoke with outside the store tonight said they plan to spend less. Even that guy way up on top of Nordstrom's roof, getting ready to hang the Christmas wreath. So you're going to spend more or less than last Christmas? Less. Less? Less. Greg White is in the Navy.
It's kind of unfair to the people who you love, you want to spend money on, but you can't really afford it.
Maureen Norris says her family will cut back this year.
Or my brother and I are going to go on something for my sister, and my sister and I are going to go on something for my brother.
So to share the expense.
Yeah.
The good news, say economists, is that stores will be fighting to give you the lowest prices this year.
I think it should be pretty busy, because a lot of people have kind of waited.
So shop around, and you might find everything will turn out fine.
Pretty good, I think.
Okay, you're too young to take the earned income credit.
If the 4th of July is known for its fireworks,
did you pay rent?
Then the 15th of April
$3.57.
could be marked by its frowns.
I've been waiting about an hour now.
I didn't realize it was going to be this many people.
$3.58.
This is the first year I'll end up paying, and I don't like it at all.
The forms may be free.
Do you file a long form? Do you file 1048?
But here in the tax line, you can't buy a smile.
And I don't want to pay no more interest or penalties.
Unless
Whoa, you missed me,
you're in Darlene Hayward's line.
This out. I want some mail.
For the past 10 years, Darlene Hayward has been on a mission.
Oh, a pretty car. Give me the car. Keep the mail.
To declare Milwaukee exempt from tax day scowls.
Don't look so serious. It's not that bad.
Just the way she is. That's our Darlene.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I feel like Elvis. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Her co-workers at the post office aren't sure where she gets it.
Give it up. Give me the money.
I don't know, but I sure like it.
We decided to take your car because your car is pretty.
A grandmother with the spirit of a high school cheerleader.
I'm going to start singing now. I think we should have a sing-along.
Yeah, she's always like that.
I'm in the money.
A song-singing, wisecrack-slinging,
For me.
goodwill-bringing ambassador.
Well, hi there. For me?
for postal workers everywhere.
You want me to mail it today? Oh, we always get a bad rap. We do. And we're not. We're the best people in the world.
Actually, Darlene was performing long before she arrived at the post office.
I was a stripper.
True story.
Oh, yeah. I danced for 20-some years.
Danced for a time in Las Vegas.
For me?
And now, Las Vegas is calling her back.
I love it there. I've always loved it.
She's put in for a transfer to the Las Vegas post office.
I saw you last year. I know I did.
If she gets her wish, by year's end, Darlene Hayward will again be awash in the lights of Sin City.
I think I got to go where I belong. Hi, how you doing?
And Milwaukeeans will have one less reason to smile the next time they file.
Hey, I'm warming up now.
Boyd Hooper, 6 is News.
Okay, bye-bye.
Milwaukee.
Thank you, and please drive safely. Show us another C.
When 83-year-old Agnes Berger began teaching Charlie Albright to read music this year,
B flat. That's a black key.
Charlie surprised her.
The black key. The black key, B flat. Uh-huh, right.
Charlie couldn't read a note, but he sure could play.
I don't understand how he can do all of that at 4 years old when I can't sit down there and play one thing without the notes.
Charlie taught himself the piano when he was just 2 years old. He just crawled up on a piano bench and began playing. He still can't read music, but when he hears a song, he can play it.
And I never taught him how to play. And I asked him, who taught you that music? And he says, nobody. And I didn't realize until then, oh, I better do something.
Charlie's mom hired Agnes Berger, their down-the-street neighbor, who teaches piano and accordion.
This is a precious old thing.
I really don't know where he got it. When he's sitting on a table, dinner table, wherever, his fingers keep moving like playing piano without any key. Must be music in his mind that comes out his finger.
Charlie, how come you don't read music all the time?
Because I don't read music and I don't like reading music.
Well, how do you play the piano then?
I don't know. Just magic.
There is one problem. Charlie occasionally enjoys leaving Agnes in the dust.
We try to play together, but he gets going too fast for me. He's a sweetheart to me. He's my boy. He's my 4-year-old.
Charlie Albright, 4 years old, may be gifted and may be fast, but he still needs Agnes. As a teacher, a friend, and after all, she's the only one who can reach the pedals. John Larson, Como News 4, Centralia.
Show us another C.
When 83-year-old Agnes Berger began teaching Charlie Albright to read music this year,
B flat. That's a black key.
Charlie surprised her.
The black key. The black key, B flat. Uh-huh, right.
Charlie couldn't read a note, but he sure could play.
I don't understand how he can do all of that at 4 years old when I can't sit down there and play one thing without the notes.
Charlie taught himself the piano when he was just 2 years old. He just crawled up on a piano bench and began playing. He still can't read music, but when he hears a song,
Here it is.
He can play it.
There it is. Uh-huh.
For example, we asked Agnes to play something Charlie had never heard before. First, he began picking up the melody. Then he threw in the left hand. This is how Charlie has learned dozens of songs. He listens to Agnes and then takes off. In fact, sometimes Charlie takes off so fast, he leaves Agnes in the dust.
We try to play together, but he gets going too fast for me. Oh, he's fast. He's a fast boy.
Charlie Albright, 4 years old, may be gifted, and he may be fast, but he still needs Agnes Berger. She can reach the pedals. John Larson, Como News 4, Centralia.
All cities have to take a look at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a mirror of many of our cities.
If Cincinnati, Ohio is a mirror, no one liked what we saw in the mirror one morning in November. For 6 minutes, Cincinnati police officers beat an unarmed black man. Although the coroner would later say the beating led to the man's death, in the eyes of the mayor and the county prosecutor, the police action was justified. After all, the 350-pound man high on drugs had attacked the officers.
The police officers had a legitimate interest in making absolutely certain that they protected their own lives and their own safety.
I don't see him breathing.
But not everyone agreed. You see, in Cincinnati, which is mostly white, on-duty police there have killed 18 people in 9 years, and every one of those killed has been black.
We know that white kids run from the police. We know that white people fight police. In this city, they just didn't end up dead.
18-month Dateline investigation of racial profiling. New and compelling statistical evidence gathered from Cincinnati and cities across the country. Do police deny millions of Americans the most basic protection promised them in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, equal protection under the law? Or are charges of racial profiling exaggerated or completely false?
Hey, what's the problem, man? She's got a reason.
We begin on the streets of Cincinnati, Ohio, a city torn by allegations of racial profiling.
Hey, put your hands on the car or you're gonna go in cuffs, man.
Here, police officer Ron Dammert works one of the nation's roughest neighborhoods. Over the Rhine. In 1 year, nearly 400 robberies, more than 200 assaults, 10 murders in one small, overwhelmingly black inner-city neighborhood. Most of this crime fueled by the only growth industry in sight, drugs.
Each block has its own personality. It'll either be marijuana, crack cocaine, there's heroin down here. The drug trade down here, it's all because of the money.
On the blocks he patrols, drug dealers try very hard not to get caught. Lookouts on each corner announce the presence of cops.
The boys!
Boys is the code name for police, a warning for dealers to suspend their trade.
The boys!
It's just the way the game is played. The dope dealers will tell you it's a game. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Popular place for people to smoke crack. Yep, there's 2 right there.
And playing offense is called proactive policing.
She just dropped something. Sit down. Sit down.
Now watch closely.
What are you guys doing back here?
Dammert hasn't seen any crime being committed, but he says he saw the woman drop something. And he knows, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, if he has a reasonable suspicion, he can begin a search.
You don't have any problem if I search you, right? You're not wanted, sir?
No, I'm not.
The men are searched and released. He then turns his attention to the woman.
See, I told you put something on the step, didn't I? I didn't put that. Ma'am, I saw you put it on the step. Yeah, I did. Turn around, put your hands behind your back.
He had found a crack pipe right where he said he saw her drop something.
She's a relatively long way away. How could you see it?
It took me a long time to learn how to catch people.
I wholeheartedly know that that is not true. Does anybody honestly think that I would work in a place that is overwhelmingly African American if I was racist towards them?
Nonetheless, you'll soon see how even with the best of cops, and Officer Dammert is that, hand-picked by the department to escort Dateline, how even with Cincinnati's finest, aggressive, proactive policing can breed anger and charges of racial profiling.
Okay, guy in a black hoodie right in front of Albert's Market just saw us and headed straight into the store.
Officer Dammert has just seen a young black man in a sweatshirt turn away from him and decides for that reason alone the young man is worth talking to.
Can I talk to you for a minute, sir? How you doing? You have any ID on you? Do you have anything on you shouldn't have? You look like you're trying to avoid me.
No, I'm on the phone.
No, you saw me coming and you took off around the corner and then saw me and started walking again.
No.
You got some weed on you, man? It's just a ticket.
No.
You don't have
It's
nothing
called
on you.
stop and talk. Ask a few questions, see if he'll consent to a search. It's all perfectly legal.
You ain't got no warrants, right? How much money do you have on you, sir?
I should have a little bit over 100.
Okay. You got a job? Where are you working at, sir?
I mean, I was working at Montgomery.
Oh, okay. Spread your legs for me.
The man has done nothing wrong, hasn't broken any law, but does he fit a certain profile?
51. Do nothing, man.
Well, if you didn't do nothing, man, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Okay, and I do appreciate you cooperating with me, all right?
Yeah.
Just short, all right? Just out here trying to get dope off the street, man. This is how we do it. Mr. Short, thanks for your cooperation, man.
The young man is let go. No incident report is filled out. There'll be no record the stop ever happened.
He saw us come around the corner and he turned and started to walk away.
Was this racial profiling? Not in the eyes of Officer Dammert.
I thought he had a warrant. I thought he had marijuana. One or the other, maybe both.
You're saying I thought. You mean, in other words, you're taking an educated guess?
Yes.
Based on the fact that he turned away?
Based on the fact that I've worked in Over the Rhine for 5 years.
How important was it that he was dressed in a hooded sweatshirt, black, standing on the corner?
Didn't mean a whole lot to me.
His race?
No. It was his activity, what he was doing. He saw me and immediately turned away.
Is that reason enough to go stop him and eventually search him?
No.
We showed a tape of the incident to Cecil Thomas, a Cincinnati cop for 27 years, who now runs Cincinnati's Human Relations Commission.
That's good enough reason for you to maybe go around the block, call your undercover units, and say, hey, I got a guy acting suspicious. You think you can come over here and stake him out and see what he's up to? Anything further than that, you're really on thin ice.
Thomas says isolated stops like this may seem minor to white Americans, but he says in the African American community, they happen far too often.
Are Cincinnati police profiling people racially?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you just saw it in that film. In the film, you just seen it.
The same day he was stopped and frisked, the young man arrives at police headquarters, attempting to file a complaint that he'd been profiled and harassed.
Do you think I harassed you?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, come on.
I was on the phone.
Dammert's supervisor joins them, and Dammert, saying it was not racial profiling, tries to explain the law.
You turned and walked again. Twice you turned and walked away from me. That, in that neighborhood, gives me reasonable suspicion to believe that you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing.
The young man tries to explain what it's like to be stopped, searched, and embarrassed on the street.
I mean, you said, I look suspicious. You know what I'm saying?
He asked 4 separate times to file a complaint, something entirely within his rights, but the officers won't hear of it.
Well, you're talking to my boss right now. I don't think he's going to put it on paper because there's no violation here.
But, I mean, I should have the right to, you know what I'm saying, write it down.
They even suggest there might be legal consequences.
For me, do you understand there's such a thing as filing a false police report? You understand it's a criminal charge? If you try to go through with this and they bring that tape in and they find that you're lying about what you're saying, you know you can be charged with that?
I ain't lying, though.
He never files a complaint and leaves feeling his concerns were neither heard nor understood.
Can you see how this young man would feel like this cop targeted me? I mean, I didn't have anything on me. I wasn't selling drugs. I turn away from him. That's why he comes up on me.
Well, you use the word targeted. Why would I target him? Because he's black? This is, in my opinion, It's good, proactive police work.
You didn't get any drugs. You left behind a young man who distrusts you even more, and the animosity grows. Was it worth it?
I explained to him numerous times why I did what I did. He didn't want to hear it, so the only other alternative is don't stop him in the first place. You know, if I stop doing that, I'm going to have the community on my back. Why aren't you out there getting these guys?
In all fairness, the community might say, yeah, don't stop him. If all he does is turn away from you, don't stop him. Look for something more.
Probably the majority of our major arrests come from minor violations. Do you want me to take drugs off the street? This is how I'm going to do it. If you don't like the way I'm going to do it, don't look at it. But this is how it has to be done.
The people of Central Washington count on a few days being over 100 degrees every July. Wheat farmers out here count on about 10 inches of rain every year. They usually get it. And there's a small town out here named Mansfield. Driving through town takes exactly that long. And things are pretty predictable here, too.
Bread dough will be here Thursday.
Rick the grocer knows every customer. He knows every car on Main Street.
The blue pickups, the Zellums. Ethel Poole, she's probably just about ready to go to work in Chelan.
Lynn, the cafe owner, knows her customers so well she could start their order before they arrive.
Harry Beard, and it's usually a hot cake and bacon or fried 1 egg with hash browns and toast. Or Tom Poole, which is a ham and cheese omelet every Saturday morning, like clockwork.
That's why it kind of surprised everyone when a stranger from the big city showed up. One parking meter, the only meter in 7,200 square miles.
Just have a little fun.
Tom Snell, the county's road boss, bought the meter as a prank.
It cost me $50.
There's a typical response.
But you see, they don't have to be.
I think we got them now.
This victim was from Canada.
It's a way to make money, I guess, for a small town.
And when there aren't a lot of visitors, Tom includes his friends. Friends like Harold Beard. That's Harold's truck over there. That's Harold.
Give me a ticket here, for crying out loud. Not supposed to get a ticket in this town.
The meter's not just Tom's joke. Shortly after breakfast, we saw Rick the grocer nail Floyd Avenell's car.
It's not light, but it does get moved quite frequently.
Yeah, I put it in front of the mayor's car.
I put it in front of the sheriff's car.
There goes Lydia, the lady who owns the tavern.
It's kind of fun.
Now, you'd think sooner or later someone would get sick of it all and complain about Tom's parking meter to the mayor.
I don't think it'd do him any good.
Why's that?
I'm the mayor.
So maybe small towns are predictable. But if you go to Mansfield, don't be surprised if they treat you, well, like they've known you all your life.
Every town's got its way.
In fact, you can almost count on it.
Time expired.
How about an IOU?
You don't even have a penny?
I don't. See, I'm a farmer's wife.
John Larson, what's next?
We're trying to work on a fire hydrant on wheels.
Como News 4, Mansfield.
Is there anything you wouldn't do for the love of your children? Risk your life for them? What about your country? In time of war, acts of death-defying courage are rewarded with medals. What about the love of God? The people you'll meet in this story perform death-defying acts week after week as an act of faith. From the outside, it's hard to believe, but this is a story about an outsider who himself became a true believer and lived to tell about it. Here's John Larson.
And with that in the name of Jesus.
I'd always been drawn to danger. Alcohol, psychedelics, war. If it made me feel good, I'd do it. I wouldn't really lose my mind. That's what I thought anyway.
Dennis Covington is a writer and journalist. His work has driven him from the wars of Central America to the most remote corners of the Deep South. Covington has a wife and 2 kids, a mortgage, an altogether conventional life. But when the New York Times assigned him to cover a trial in northern Alabama, he walked into a story that would one day challenge his sanity and change his life. It was February 1992, Scottsboro, Alabama. A backwoods preacher, Glenn Summerford, was on trial for trying to kill his wife, Darlene.
He forced her out of the house at gunpoint.
According to court records, the crime scene was the Summerford home, and the weapon, just listen.
And took her to this shed where he kept 17 venomous snakes.
They were rattlesnakes and copperheads, all kept in cages.
He put the gun to her head and said that either she put her hand in the cage or he would force her face into it and allow her to be bitten there. So she stuck her hand in the box and was very quickly bitten by a rattlesnake.
Did that kill her?
No.
I'll tell you this.
Glenn Summerford denies it.
She lied, and she knows she lied. She knows I never pointed no gun at her.
Covington was intrigued by the case from the beginning. There was the bizarre weapon, which the prosecutor had to store in a cage in the courthouse basement. Then Covington learned more about the suspect, his wife, who survived the snake bite, and their unusual religious beliefs. In a converted gas station, Covington found the Summerford's church. It looked typical of many in Appalachia, at least at first glance.
I don't believe you have to have a snake to go to heaven, but I believe you're going to have to believe it.
But it became clear just how strangely different this church was when portions of this tape were played in court during the Summerford trial. There's Glenn Summerford, and there's Darlene. They were serpent handlers, Christian fundamentalists in a most extreme sense, who take the Bible literally, especially one verse from the book of Mark, chapter 16, which says, "Believers take up serpents, poisonous snakes." The reporter, Dennis Covington, had never seen anything like it.
I simply didn't know much about it, and I thought it was crazy, and I thought the guy must be some kind of showman who was simply trying to demonstrate his faith to the congregation. I didn't know there was a biblical reference related to it.
So Covington began researching snake handling and found it can be dangerous, if not deadly.
If God don't want me to die with a snake bite, he will not let me die.
In the late 1960s, filmmakers were present when this preacher was bitten on the hand.
Just touch him now. Leave that blood on the floor. And that's God's word, good folks. If I die with this snake bite, it's still God's word.
This preacher survived.
Praise the Lord!
In the 1980s, Charles Prince, one of the most flamboyant snake handlers, was bitten on the left hand. He, like other snake handlers before him, refused medical help, believing the bite was God's will, and only prayer could save him. His arm swelled to grotesque proportion. After 36 agonizing hours, he died. In fact, since the turn of the century, poisonous snakes have killed at least 73 of the believers. Today, religious snake handling goes on in churches like this one here in Alabama, but also in congregations from Indiana, across the South, and on into Florida. And in most of these states, snake handling is against the law. But in Alabama, where Dennis Covington was covering the Summerford trial, snake handling is legal, though not welcome, according to Glenn Summerford's congregation. What's it like being a serpent handler in this part of the country?
You're trash. You're talked about. They treat people that are snake handlers as trash. They're no good. They're people that handle snakes. They're ignorant.
I believe honestly with all my heart the man was put on trial, not for what he did, but for what he stands for serpent handling. Amen. The Word of God. That's and right. It is the Word of God.
Well, if I'm guilty of anything, it's loving the Lord.
Glenn Summerford was tried for attempted murder. As Covington reported, the jury found Summerford guilty.
It seemed to me that the conviction of Glenn Summerford was the beginning of another chapter. Darlene's journey with the handlers was behind her now. Mine had just begun.
For reporter Dennis Covington, the trial had ended, but not the story.
There's something familiar about this kind of territory, these sorts of houses, this kind of land. It's in me.
Covington returned to his normal routine, his wife, his 2 daughters. But he felt as though a door had been opened, and he was about to walk through it.
I wanted to know why they took up serpents, and I wanted to know what it felt like for them.
So Covington began a 2-year odyssey, observing services in Alabama and in the coal mining mountains of West Virginia.
That music was like nothing I'd ever heard before. A cross between Salvation Army and acid rock. The longer you witness it, the more you become a part of it. I did.
Covington saw church members whose hands were deformed and scarred from snake bites. He saw people speaking in tongues. And claiming to heal the sick. And drinking poison. That's right, poison. All because they say the Bible tells them to. And everywhere, people spoke of the mystery of handling serpents.
The biggest high that you've ever been on, this is 10,000 times greater.
It's the only power some of these people have.
It's your life. It's in your hands. You can die.
I wondered if there could be any pleasure at all in coming so close to death and surviving.
Dennis Covington would later realize the story was pulling him under, dragging him towards the line reporters are not supposed to cross.
I didn't feel at that moment that I was losing my mind, although subsequently that thought did occur to me.
To Covington, the people he met did seem out of their minds, at least at first. But he was slowly overwhelmed by their willingness to risk everything for faith. He saw Melissa Evans handling snakes even though her own grandmother was killed by a rattler in church. When we saw Melissa handling snakes, she was pregnant.
You're 5 months pregnant, and last night I saw you pick up a poisonous snake.
Mm-hmm.
You did that because God told you to do it?
That's right. You know, if the Lord tells me to, I'm going to do it, no matter what.
Well, maybe you could put it off just for about 3 more months.
No. Next weekend, if he told me to handle one, you know, if the Lord anointed me to handle a serpent, then I would.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't think he was going to die.
Covington also met Betty Johnson, a woman at peace with her faith, even though her husband was fatally bitten during a service 3 years ago.
It was on Sunday. It got him twice. He lived 13 hours.
Do you wish that maybe you'd brought him to a doctor?
No, really I don't.
It could have saved his life.
No, it was his time to go. And I really believe that with all my heart.
For Dennis Covington, the story had become an almost Alice in Wonderland-like freefall into a seemingly insane world. And the only question was, where was it going to end?
I knew the real story wouldn't be over until I'd seen and experienced for myself.
6 months into his journey, Covington met assistant pastor Dewey Chafin, a legend among serpent handlers.
Hey, come on now.
Chafin has been bitten so many times, he keeps a photo album of his worst bites.
You're seriously bit me.
In 1976, a filmmaker visited Chafin the day after he was bitten by a snake.
How many times have you been bitten now?
Maybe 68 times.
68 times?
And that's over about 20 years. Ain't too bad.
18 years later, the count is still going up.
How many times you been bitten?
The other day made 118.
118 times by a poisonous snake. The last one on the finger just 2 days earlier.
Copperhead bit.
You ever wonder if you're a little bit nuts?
No, I don't wonder about it. I know I'm not crazy. See, I know I'm doing what the Bible says for me to do.
My grandmother would just say you got to use the brain that God gave you.
Well, that's true, right?
You know, and your brain tells you these things are dangerous.
It's true.
You believe every single word in the Bible?
Every single word. I believe it all.
It was the faith of Chafin and others that moved Dennis Covington towards the inevitable.
Maybe it was his strong religious beliefs. Maybe his lifelong attraction to danger. Whatever the reason, Covington forgot about his wife and 2 kids, his conventional life, and crossed the line. It was a moment just like this.
They knew before I did what was going to happen. They saw me angling in. So I got up there in the middle of the handlers. Who was it gonna be? And yes, it was the big rattler, the one with my name on it, acrid smelling, carnal, alive. This was the moment. I didn't stop to think about it. I just gave in. I stepped forward and took the snake with both hands, and it was exactly as the handlers had told me. I felt no fear, and I realized that I too was fading into the white, and all I could see was the way its scales shimmered one last time in the light, and the way its head moved from side to side. I knew then why the handlers took up serpents. There is power in the act of disappearing. I came back in stages. First, with the recognition that the shouting I had begun to hear was coming from my own mouth. Then I realized I was holding a rattlesnake. I could feel its muscles ripping beneath the skin, and the church rushed back with all its clamor, heat, and smell. I was aware it was not a part of me now. I extended it. He took it from me. Jesus. Oh, Jesus.
I'm glad I wasn't there. I don't think I would have liked to have seen that.
Covington's wife, Vicki.
Somebody got a photograph of Dennis with that snake, and I think the only thing that disturbed me about it was he had a look on his face that I had never seen before.
Covington handled snakes 3 more times. He told Dateline he had fantasies about loading serpent boxes into the back of a pickup truck and holding revival meetings across the South. But then one day, he thought, this has got to stop.
I mean, I wasn't going to come up here and, become a snake handling preacher. Although stranger things have happened to people,
Covington is a writer, and as writers often do, he put his journey into words. Now a book called Salvation on Sand Mountain. So his 2-year odyssey was over, or was it?
I'm not going to take up serpents again. On the other hand, I'm glad I did, and I'll carry it with me.
To hear Covington's story is to be left with a question. After the singing stops and the snakes are back in their boxes, is Dennis Covington a reporter who got a story, or is it the other way around? Did the story get him?
I am a believer, and nothing's going to change that.